Warren Raja was doing his regular shop at a Sainsbury's in London when 3 store managers walked up to him holding a phone, looked at the screen, then looked at him and told him to leave. No explanation. Just a finger pointed at a poster near the entrance that read, "Facial recognition technology in operation." He hadn't stolen anything. He'd never stolen anything in his life. A camera had matched his face to a database of banned offenders, gotten it wrong, and within seconds, 3 members of staff had already decided he was guilty in front of every other customer in the queue. To clear his name, he had to send FaceWatch, the company running the system, a copy of his passport and a headshot, just to prove he was allowed to buy groceries in his own neighborhood. That's not a hypothetical. That happened this year in a British supermarket. And it's the tip of something much bigger than one wrongly accused shopper. Because underneath the ordinary act of doing your weekly shop, British supermarkets have quietly built systems that are watching you, learning from you, and in a growing number of cases, making decisions about you, and almost nobody walking in for a pint of milk knows how far it's already gone. Start with the most basic thing that's changed, the thing everyone's actually felt even if they've never said it out loud. The person you used to see. 20 years ago, a weekly shop meant a few small, human moments strung together. A cashier who recognized your face. Someone stacking shelves who'd point you to what you needed before you asked. A few words exchanged near the deli counter with someone you'd never formally met but somehow knew a little. None of it dramatic. All of it, in hindsight, doing more work than anyone realized. That thread is thinning fast. Roughly 2/3 of UK shoppers now use some kind of self-scan system, and in a growing number of stores, that isn't a choice, it's the only queue that's actually open. And here's what makes it worth sitting with. When Which asked its own members how they genuinely prefer to check out. The largest group, just over half, said they still wanted a real person at a till. Most people aren't choosing the machine because they like it better. They are choosing it because the human option has quietly stopped being available. For a huge number of people, especially those living alone, that small daily exchange at the till wasn't trivial. Nearly 1/3 of British adults say they feel lonely at least some of the time, and researchers now describe the health toll of chronic loneliness as comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. For someone whose day runs from an empty flat to work and back again, the 2 minutes at the checkout, someone asking if they found everything all right, was sometimes the only spoken exchange in their entire day. Picture an 81-year-old widower doing his Thursday shop, the same one he's done for years, a small basket, nothing complicated. He's not on any app. He doesn't have a smartphone that talks to his fridge. What he had, until fairly recently, was a cashier on the till who knew his name, asked about his knee, and once or twice noticed he hadn't been in for a week and gently asked if everything was all right. That till is a self-scan terminal now. He can work it, slowly, with his glasses pushed up his nose, pressing the screen when it tells him to. But nobody at the end of it asks about his knee anymore, and there's nobody left to notice if he stops coming in. That's not a story about a man who can't handle technology. That's a story about what quietly stops existing when the only person paid to stand at the end of the process is replaced by a screen that has no idea who he is and no way of noticing when he isn't there. That's not a statistic about retail efficiency. That's a statistic about how many ordinary people are quietly losing the one interaction that reminded them someone else was paying attention. Have you noticed this in your own local shop? Tell me honestly in the comments. It genuinely helps to know how widespread this actually feels. Now here's where it goes somewhere most people haven't clocked yet, because the story doesn't end with fewer people behind the till. It continues with what's replaced them. FaceWatch, the live facial recognition system that misidentified Warren Raja, is now running in stores across the country, including B&M, Home Bargains, Sports Direct, Spar, Cost Cutter, Southern Co-op, and 6 Sainsbury's branches. The company says it sends retailers more than 50,000 alerts a month and claims a 99.98% accuracy rate. That sounds reassuring until you realize what a tiny error rate still means at that kind of scale, and Raja wasn't the only person it happened to. Around the same period, a woman shopping at a Home Bargains store in Greater Manchester was also wrongly flagged, publicly confronted, and accused of a theft she had nothing to do with. Think about what actually had to happen for Raja to get his name cleared. Not a conversation. Not someone checking a receipt or till record. He had to hand over a copy of his passport and a personal photograph to a private security company, just to prove a supermarket had been wrong about him. A man who did nothing wrong ended up owing more personal information to strangers than the shoplifters the system was actually built to catch. He said publicly that being wrongly flagged left him feeling like he was living inside a piece of dystopian fiction, and that for someone more vulnerable, that kind of public humiliation could do real damage to their mental health. Here's the part that should genuinely concern you more than his case alone. The UK's own Home Office has acknowledged that facial recognition systems are measurably more likely to misidentify Black and Asian people than white people, and more likely to misidentify women than men. So this isn't an evenly distributed inconvenience, spread randomly across every kind of shopper. The people statistically most likely to be wrongly pulled aside, publicly confronted, and forced to prove their own innocence in front of a queue of strangers are disproportionately the people already more likely to face unwarranted suspicion in everyday life, for reasons that have nothing to do with anything they've actually done. Sainsbury's apologized to Raja and called it human error, not a fault in the technology itself. Maybe that's a fair distinction to draw. It doesn't change what happened to him, and it doesn't change the fact that the same system is still running in that store today, waiting for its next false match on someone who has no idea it's coming. So the cameras watching your face are one layer. The card in your wallet is another, and it goes back further than most people realize. Back in the 1990s, Tesco brought in two data analysts, Clive Humby and Edwina Dunn, to figure out why a small trial of a new rewards card was working so well. What they found unsettled Tesco's own chairman so much that he told them, in effect, that they now understood Tesco's customers better after 3 months of data than he had after 3 decades running the company. That rewards card became the Tesco Club Card. It now reaches over 23 million UK households, more than 80% of the entire country, and the analytics firm born from that original presentation, dunnhumby, still processes the data behind it today. To understand what that kind of data can actually do, it helps to look at what happened at an American retailer around the same period this approach was maturing. In 2012, a father stormed into a branch of Target, furious that his teenage daughter had been sent vouchers for baby clothes and nursery furniture. Target systems had worked out she was pregnant from her recent purchases before she told her own family. It hadn't guessed. It had calculated a pregnancy score from her shopping pattern and got it right. dunnhumby's own blog has openly speculated about doing similar things with club card data, flagging shoppers who show what it calls microscopic behaviors, signaling they might switch to a rival supermarket, and prompting targeted deals to pull them back before they ever consciously decide to leave. Industry commentators have separately raised a more uncomfortable question out loud. If a supermarket's data arm can see exactly how many bottles of wine or vodka a household buys every week, what happens if that information ever finds its way toward an insurance premium? None of this means Tesco is doing any one specific thing with your data right now that you'd find shocking. Nobody outside the company can say that with certainty either way, and that's precisely the point. What we do know is what the data can theoretically reveal, because Tesco's own analytics partner has said as much in its own public materials, describing the ability to flag shoppers, showing what it calls microscopic changes in habit, small shifts that might mean someone's thinking about switching to a rival supermarket, long before that person has consciously made the decision themselves. Big Brother Watch, the privacy campaign group, has raised a different but related concern, that supermarkets are increasingly tying their best discounts to how much personal data a shopper is willing to hand over, at the exact moment a cost of living crisis is making people less able to say no. Think about what that actually looks like for an ordinary family. The own-brand version of something costs one price. The club card price is meaningfully lower. To get it, you don't pay extra money. You pay with a running, permanent record of everything else in your basket, tied to your name, your address, and your phone number. A few years ago, that trade felt optional, a nice bonus for people who didn't mind signing up. For a growing number of households squeezed by higher bills, it doesn't feel optional anymore. The bargain used to be simple, a few points for your loyalty. What it's quietly become is something closer to a toll, pay with your data, or pay full price, and for a lot of families right now, that isn't really a free choice at all. And that data doesn't necessarily stay inside the supermarket's own walls forever. Industry commentators covering the sale of Tesco's data analytics arm have openly asked the uncomfortable question out loud. If a company can see exactly how many bottles of wine a household buys every week, what happens the day that information finds its way, directly or indirectly, toward a health or life insurance premium? Nobody has confirmed that's happening today. But the fact that people who actually worked inside this industry are the ones raising it tells you something about how plausible they think it is. Step back and look at the whole shape of it together. None of these systems were built by one villain in one room with a plan to make British life feel worse. The self-checkout genuinely saves time. FaceWatch genuinely stops real shoplifters in some stores. Clubcard genuinely saves millions of stretched households real money every week. Each piece, taken on its own, is defensible, sometimes even generous. But Warren Raja didn't experience any of those good intentions. He experienced three strangers deciding he was a criminal in front of a queue of people, because a system got it wrong and nobody with the authority to stop it did, until it was already happening to him. And millions of ordinary shoppers who will never be wrongly flagged are still, every single week, quietly trading a little more of what they buy, when they buy it, and what it says about them, for a discount they've come to feel they can no longer afford to turn down. That's the part that doesn't show up in any retailer's press release. Not the cameras, not the discounts, not the convenience. The part where an ordinary person, doing an ordinary shop, ends up owing an explanation of their own innocence to a machine, or handing over a little more of themselves than they meant to, just to get the same basket of groceries their parents used to buy without anyone watching at all. None of this happened because anyone sat down and decided British supermarkets should feel like this. It happened one reasonable decision at a time, a camera here, a discount tied to an app there, a checkout closed and replaced with a screen, each one small enough that nobody felt they had grounds to object. That's usually how the biggest changes in ordinary life actually happen. Not in one dramatic announcement, but in the accumulation of small, defensible steps that nobody was ever asked to vote on. Warren Raja didn't wake up expecting to spend part of his day proving to a stranger that he wasn't a criminal. Millions of shoppers signing up for a loyalty card never sat down and decided exactly how much of their private life they were comfortable handing over in exchange for cheaper bread. The trade happened anyway, gradually, without anyone drawing a clear line and asking whether this is actually what people wanted. What's the one change in your own local supermarket that's actually stopped you in your tracks? Tell me below. I read every comment.